Good afternoon. I'm very honored to open a conference with such a complicated name. I'm not even sure what it stands for. IGD, International? Implementing Geological. Oh, geology. Perfect. So that's very good. I want to open the conference, but I want to also talk about something a little bit more juicy. And you all know that this week, or last week, we had quite a, let's say, tiring week, but it was a very good week. We had a decision to announce, and I think it went well so far, but I would like to rehearse that a little bit and tell you what it is all about. First, a word of thanks. These conferences are very important for us because this is where we get the arguments. This is where we can test our arguments. This is where we get, hopefully constructive, but a little bit of criticism for our arguments. So it's many, many players that play into a citing decision like that. Not the least, of course, the exchange with scientific colleagues from across the world, also in conferences like this. So very important for us. So over the last few years, we have done a lot of data acquisition. And I was amazed when I came here to find such a rich database with such robust data. To be honest, I've never seen something like that. And when I came, I made once the error to ask one of our geologists if he could explain me all the data we have acquired and what we use it for. It was in March when I came, it was really cold, and we were standing outside, and I got even colder while he was explaining. Never seen something like that. It's a very robust database. I'm very happy to have all of us to work on something like this. What did we find out? Well, this is sort of the heart of our deep geological repository plan, the Opolinus clay. Not very spectacular, I would say. Actually quite boring from a geological point of view. 175 million years old. Three very important factors. It's very tight. It binds radioisotopes. Electromagnetic forces of the clay minerals are very helpful in that. And if it would break, it would heal itself. With a little bit of water, the clay minerals expand and the fractures heal themselves. And in every of the three sites we have been looking at to take that decision, this rock is present. It's present in a thick layer of about 100 meters. And it's the main geological barrier that we have. And it makes us to go below the law that stipulates our limit of radioactivity. By about 1,000 times, actually. So quite a lot. Now, having spoken about what is present in all areas, I would like to show the differences, because the citing proposal is, of course, centered on the differences. Now, since the rock is good everywhere, we need to find something else that makes the isolation the best in the site we have chosen. And what you see here is that the distance to the aquifers is greatest, and therefore the way for the radioisotopes to diffuse out of the deep geological repository. Very clearly here, Nördlich Lägern, the site chosen, has an advantage. Let me explain you what we found. Now, we found a lot of very old pore water in the Opolinus clay. In fact, we found the oldest pore water in Nördlich Lägern. That means the isolation is best. That means that nature has done an experiment for us already, and the results of that experiment point to the best isolation in Nördlichlägern. Very simple, because the new equilibrium of a final state has not been reached. You see here that we would expect these kind of belly shapes with the oldest water, so the red points most to the right, here representing deuterium, and of course the aquifer that brings in the fresh water, pulling this to the left. What did we really find? This is the real data. If we really look to the very left, you see a well called Bötzberg 1. You see the typical belly shape. You can see on the bottom a fresh aquifer, and you can see on the top another fresh aquifer. If you go more to the right, you'll see that our chosen site has the straightest of all distributions. And not only that, the red points are also most to the right. The oldest pore water with the largest distance to the aquifers. Clear advantage for Nördlichlägern. Another factor is that this quality of the rock, so the quality of the isolation, doesn't only need to be good today, but of course also in the far future. And one of the main factors of stability of this rock are surface processes. These surface processes, some man-made, very short time amongst geologists, but mainly natural processes like erosion, we need to be kept very far away. And of course, the deepest site, here again in Nördlichlägern, helps us a lot in this. In Nördlichlägern, the distance from the opalinous clay, where we site our repository, to these surface processes is largest, and therefore the stability of the opalinous clay best. We have done a lot of simulations on this, and let me show you one of those. If you go to the most left picture, that's a picture of rivers in Switzerland. You can read the Aare that flows from west to east, then breaks through the Jura Mountains, and then flows back towards the west. Energetically, that's not very good. It would be much, much better if the Aare would flow straight. And indeed, in fact, that could happen and has already happened in the past. So it is likely that at one point over the next million years, the Aare might take a shortcut. And these scenarios we modeled in various ways. You can see here a few different models. If we look at the whole situation, and this is a profile through the three areas, you can see the three geological representations, always with the opalinous clay in dark, the site of the deep geological repository, this little star. Above it, you can see hard geological units, erosion-resistant units. You can see in a darker color, and the rest of the stratigraphy light. The first thing you notice is that Nördlichlägern is deepest, and also that it has most of the erosion-resistant rocks. Now, this is a possible surface, including the uncertainty, in 1 million years. And what you can see is that in Jura-Ost, and that is where we have just looked at the Aare and these different flow directions, there is a remote possibility that the erosion would come down to the depth of the repository. In Nördlichlägern and in Zurich Nordost, this is much less likely. Clear advantage for the other two areas, so for Nördlichlägern and Zurich Nordost, with a little bit of an advantage for Nördlichlägern because there is most erosion-resistant rock there. The third big argument is the biggest area where we can site the deep geological repository. It's a little bit like if you want to build a house and you would like to build that on a nice piece of land, mostly flat. If you have to build your house on a steep bit, with some protected trees in one corner and maybe some rock face in another corner, you have to start to make compromises. I'm sure you will also be happy in a house that's standing on a little hill, with the protected trees in there. But your solar panels might not look exactly to the south, and the entrance to your garage might be curved and a little steep. Now, this is safety relevant for something like this, and therefore we would like to have the biggest area that gives us most of the flexibility to put our deep geological repository in the optimal way. Let's have a look at what that means. What you see here is a kind of a tectonic map of northern Switzerland with the big tectonic units on there. You can see the result of what we call Etappe 2, which is the previous selection process that resulted in these three areas. It's very obvious because all that has happened is we selected the areas that are not disturbed by faults. Now, you can imagine that through the Alpine orogenesis, the Jura Mountains are mostly in the west, and they disappear towards the east. On the other side, in the east, we have an extensive area where we form a new graben. Nördlich-Lägern is in the middle. And in fact, you can see that when you look at the 3D seismic interpretation, you can see that in Jura-Ost, we have more faults within the bigger fault zones. In Zurich Nordost, we have, on the other hand, a lot of small little faults and deformation zones, whereas in Nördlich-Lägern, we have the biggest area where we can site our deep geological repository. Now, we have talked a lot about the deep part of it, but of course, we not only need to have to build tunnels in the subsurface, we also need buildings at the surface. Now, the site of the entrance to our deep geological repository, that has been chosen together with the region, so with the population living in the region, and the regional governments. And we have all agreed on an area in a community called Stadl, in an area called the Haberstall. And this is a photorealistic image of that area. That's a possible way that these buildings could look like. You can see that most of the buildings can be sited in this little valley with some of the installation areas in front of that. What is not there is where we will package the radioactive waste. The radioactive waste will be packaged where it is already stored today. That is about 30 kilometers away in a community called Wörelingen, where the radioactive garbage is right now and will be also in the future. That is where we will repackage it. That is, we'll put it into the Endlager containers, as we call it. This is where we already have a functioning site that we only need to enlarge. So that gives a lot of synergies. And these synergies, they lead to some security advantages, some safety advantages, but also not as much resources that we'll need. So we can build smaller, we use less area, and for instance, we have an advantage in the use of forested land right now. Three things very important. We have always looked into safeties first. That was the principle that we used so far. That's the principle that we will use in the future. And that is our main argument. Everybody in Switzerland agrees that the radioactive garbage should be stored at the most secure site. And I think this is very, very important that we keep this consensus. That is our main argument. So we will continue with this. The next one is that we should be a learning organization. It's a very long process. It's a very long way still to go. And there will be some progress in technology and science. And we need to make sure that we define a project where we can benefit from this progress, that we can build in advances in science and technology in our existing concept. We are sure that we have a working and safe concept right now. We're also sure that in 20 years, it will be even better because we can take that progress along. And the last bit is that we need to work together. We need to work together with all kinds of different partners, not the least scientists from around the world, but of course also the regional governments. Of course also the population who lives in the area. And in fact, we made very, very good experiences in that kind of working together. For instance, as I just showed, the site of our entrance into the deep repository, that was not even our own proposal. That was a proposal that came out of the population. That is where the local population and also the regional governments see the least damage. So I'm convinced that also in the future, through working together, we can find optimal solutions to the problems that I'm sure will come to. Now, how will we proceed from here? We have a long way to go. We now have 2 years, so we are now 2022, we have announced the site where we will work out a general license proposal. That general license proposal should be handed over to the government and to the part of the government that will critically review it in about 2 years' time. Let's say 2024. We expect a decision by the Council of Ministers in 2029, and with Switzerland's democratic process, we might expect a general vote around 2031. We expect that by 2031, we have the democratic legitimation to proceed. We have to proceed by starting to build a geological laboratory at the depth where we want to go. There we have to look into the rock again and see if it actually fits to our expectations. The real building activity will start later. And the first radioactive waste will go into the deep geological repository at around 2050. I think the important thing is that 2022, we have finished the search for a site. We are now focused on one site. We're focused on one project. And that is very, very helpful, not only for our environment, but also for ourselves, because this is the focus that we'll need to continue this project with the energy and motivation, but also with the respect that is needed. Thank you very much. So that's where we stand. And I hope you have a very nice conference. I hope you have a good time in Zurich. You're a little bit far from the nice part of the city. I'm from Basel, so it's difficult to speak about the nice part of the city here. But there is a nice part of the city. Enjoy it, and I hope we all get a lot of learnings from each other. Thank you.
The role of optimization in radioactive waste geological disposal program. The last time we were together was in 2018. It was at this nice facility in Berlin, where we had a similar amount of people. Then COVID came. And in hindsight, it actually was a very productive period. It was during COVID times that Positivas put in the license for the operations. That was in December 21. It was during COVID, in January later, that SKB, the Swedish program, obtained the construction license. And furthermore, it was also during COVID that the French program is really completing now the submission of their construction license documents. And as we just heard, NAGRA was capable of completing the exploration program and now selecting on the site. So there has been a huge progress made during this COVID period, during these last 3 years. And this also made that we have not been sitting still as the IGD-TP. We have realized that the vision that we formulated in 2009, that we actually have reached it. This initial vision said that we would have operating repositories by 2025. And this is really close now. So as a vision, it has become useless. So basically, we sat around the table and said, well, what are our next ambitions for the next 15 years? And we came up with this vision towards industrialization of radioactive waste disposal in Europe. As Europe, we really want to be the front runner in the world on geological disposal, and we are on a very good way. This new vision, the 2040 vision, has 3 pillars. The first pillar is to safely operate the repositories that actually are being run now or going into operations. The second pillar is to optimize and industrialize these programs which are going towards construction license or are in site selection. And the third pillar is to tailor solutions. There are a lot of European countries which only have a small inventory, or big countries with waste which only has a small volume. Also for these types of waste, we need solutions for geological disposal or other management. But we didn't stop with the vision. We had further activities in COVID, and we developed with the IGD-TP the strategic research agenda. It was an exercise which took quite a bit of work, and we could combine our views around topics where we had a mutual interest in working together to develop research. With this strategic research agenda, which is available on the website, we actually know where we want to focus our efforts in the next 20 years towards this vision 2040. It allows us to pool the European resources, coordinate projects around this SRA, and also to secure finances and work together with the IAEA and the NEA. It is with this strategic research agenda that we will plan our future projects, and that we sincerely hope will also be an important input for the URAT2 joint programming, which is also gearing up and the preparations are taking place, where also URAT has started during COVID period. So also these discussions in the context of the SRA made us think further and brought us on the topic of optimization. Gradually, we realized over the next decade that geological disposal is not only about safety. These projects are multi-billion, multi-decade endeavors and have specific challenges. Optimization is part of a lot of steps in this program to realize the geological disposal facility. Next to safety optimization, it is not contradicting. It should be regarded together. And this symposium is the first one that really aims to summarize the status of where we are and identify the technical, scientific aspects to go forward towards further addressing optimization. So where are we on optimization? Well, it's clear that the most advanced programs, the pioneers, have been in contact a lot more with optimization than those just starting. And this is also, while we have in the next 2 days, we have quite a few contributions from these pioneers, such as SKB, Positivas, and also Andra. However, there is a chance for other programs to join in and step earlier in this optimization logic to optimize the project over the decades to come, starting from the site selection, which is the first huge optimization opportunity towards finally construction and operation. As optimization is an emerging topic in our community, different people understand different things under it. So it's currently quite broadly defined, and it covers diverse aspects. And this is what we have tried to cover within this first symposium. It's the optimization in the national programs. So this is more from a strategic point of view, going over the next decades, which pilot facility you want to have first, how it evolves, what decisions you can take later. This is one aspect of optimization. It is the technology and material optimization, thinking about the bentonite, the canister, the concrete. All this will also go through evolutions, and our program will go for multiple decades. So we don't want to take the decisions too early. We want to continue optimizing them also in the next decades. And it's also learning what is out of our industry. I mean, we are not the only ones with big infrastructure projects. There are huge tunneling projects, construction underground. We will see a few examples here in this symposium. So there are definitely things that we can learn and adapt for our needs within the geological disposal community. Then, as I mentioned, it's not opposing safety. It should go together. We're trying to optimize the project from different viewpoints, whether it's a stakeholder safety, operation, or also budget. So we're really looking for an optimal solution. So it should go hand in hand with optimization for safety. And what we also see is that there are kind of emerging holistic optimization approaches, which are generally mathematical in nature, which try to capture the whole chain from creating the waste towards disposing of in the disposal facilities and trying to assess where are the overall optimization possibilities rather than focus on tiny aspects in individual components. So these are the sessions we have in this symposium. And we hope to make a balanced program to look at these different aspects. But you will see this is the first initiative on optimization. It's quite diverse still, and it will definitely not be the last, because this is a huge topic which, with the progress in geological disposal, will gain more and more importance. And with this, I would like first to thank all people who have involved in planning and organizing a symposium. It has been a huge effort. There is the organizing committee, the local organizing committee, and the scientific committee. The people are there. And also, I want to draw attention that this is a symposium in two parts. Today, we have the live part. People are sitting here, no internet. Next week, on Thursday, we have the webinar. And although there's some time for questions, there is more possibility to formulate questions by putting them in the box over there, but also sending them to the IGD-TP email address, such that these questions can be gathered and addressed in the webinar, which aims also to reach towards our overseas programs who cannot be here still of COVID, thinking of the Japanese program, Canadian or the US program. So with this, I would like to really wish you have 2 fruitful days. Take the time to discuss and bring everything on the table about optimization, because this is definitely not the first and only event that will take place on that. Thanks a lot.
Hello, everybody. Very happy to be here to speak in front of you. I have organized my talk in 2 parts. The first part is an overview of the CGO project, where we are now. And the second part is really getting into optimization. I've organized the talk to optimize your time. Okay? So, CGO in a nutshell. CGO is a mix of 5 major operations. One is underground. It is made of 5 shafts, several disposal zones, 1 for high-level waste, 1 for intermediate-level waste, 2 transfer ramps, and a small, that is not represented here, pilot zone for high-level waste. On surface, it's 4 different operations, a rail connection, because we intend to take the waste packages to the disposal site through railway transport, a reception zone, that's where we control the waste, where we prepare it for disposal, and when we send it to the underground facility through the ramps. A shaft zone that is just above the disposal zones, which is supporting the underground activities. That's also where we have the stockpiles of the excavated material, and a zone link, which is a private link to avoid to put too many trucks, and also to have perturbation on the local population with our activities. So it's a private link. Very quickly, what do we do at CGO? We receive the waste. If it's high-level waste, we put it in metal containers. If it's intermediate-level waste, we put it in concrete boxes. You have to remember this: high level, a lot of metal; intermediate level, a lot of concrete. Once we have made the containers, we take them down with a funicular along the ramps, 5 kilometers ramps. We have what we call the above or the surface railway, where we load the funicular with the internal transport cask. We take the transport cask down to the underground facility, and then we unload the funicular at what we call the lower level station. So it's a bit less romantic than the funicular that you can see in the mountain here in Switzerland, but hopefully it works. The intermediate level waste cell are large concrete tunnel of 9 meters of diameters. The waste is transported to the disposal cell with completely automated robots, so very large concrete cells. And for high-level waste, it's the opposite. It's very thin vaults with a metal liner. We will build around 900 of these cells. They are designed to cope with the heat conduction of clay and with the heat production of high-level waste. My colleague Jean-Michel will make a presentation on this subject tomorrow. And we will start the disposal of high-level waste around 2080. So where are we with the licensing process? Irina introduced this question. We had the safety options reviewed by our safety authority in 2018. We introduced the conclusion of this review in our project. Whether or not that is an optimization, I don't know. But of course, periodical safety reviews lead to the concretization of the project, enable us to build it in the end. So of course, that's the main optimization, to be able to make it in the end. In 2022, we had a decree declaring our project of public convenience and necessity. It is a very important step in the French regulation because it allows impairment of public property. We own almost more than 80% of the land that we need, but we still have to claim a few hectares. Also, it's a very strong public message that this project has to go forward and that will be supported by the state. So it's very important for the local authorities. In preparation, we have various authorizations for site characterization, for example, for archaeological studies on site. We have the chance to have a Roman road that goes through our site, so I'm sure we will find a lot of remains. And we are working really hard to finish the license application file. It is due to be sent to the Ministry of the Environment at the end of the year. It's almost finished. The coherence reviews with the waste producer have been completed. We are really working on the last pages of the safety case. It's hard, it's difficult, it's a lot of pages, but I'm very confident that we're going to manage to send this application file at the end of the year, or the first week of January maybe. But anyway, we're getting there. We have also reorganized to be able to get ready for the changes that we're facing, changing from concept studies to gradually building. So it's a big culture change for Andra. So we have reorganized this year to ensure smooth mutation from design stage to operation and construction. So now let's get to optimization. So I have, of course, in a project, you do optimization every day, all the time. But I've chosen 5 examples where I could really give you operational feedback of what we are doing at CGO. As Matthias just described it, siting is the first and most important optimization process. The siting of CGO started in the 90s. It was a gradual process of siting that ended finding a place which is located here. Let's see if that works. Whoops. Within the hyphens. Okay. It was an iterative process to find this place that is away from active faults, that is of the good layer of clay, that is not situated below the villages, all sorts of insertion requirements. And it's also important to see that it has to be linked with the surface requirements. So we are located near a disaffected railway that we will be able to put back in operation, to refurbish, to transport. So there are tens of kilometers that are spared by reusing this disaffected railway. The layout of the surface facility is very important. You can see around, is this working? Oh, sorry. you can see around the shaft zone that we are preserving vast layers of forest, 200 meters large layers of forest. It's good for the visual insertion of the project. It is also good for the biodiversity, and all the measures and all the layout that you can organize that will preserve the environmental issue is good, is optimization, because it decreases the cost of environmental compensation afterwards. So you really have to think of the surface layout with this in mind. Also, the water cycle is organized that way. We're trying to affect as low as possible the drainage basins and the rivers that are flowing around our facility, and also the management of excavated rocks. We're sending outside the facility the excavated rock that can be reused by industries, and we're keeping only the smallest possible amount to refill our galleries when operation is over. So it's always a balance between safety requirements or requirements in general, environment impact and local insertion, but there is a lot of money to be gained if you organize properly your surface facilities in relationship with your underground facility. The second optimization pathway is, of course, the design study process. When you study a reference configuration, that's the blue line, you have all your subcontractors that are working on a reference. And then other ideas may arise and you want to modify your configuration. So you start, and that's the orange branch, working on modification. And at certain points, certain iteration, you decide to introduce a modification inside your reference configuration. As an example, in the industrial studies of CIGEO, we have studied more than 150 modifications over 8 years. Not all of these modifications were introduced in the reference configuration. Some were abandoned because they were not worth it. Some are still being developed. But you have this configuration management that is very important to optimize your facility. Also, we made periodical iterative value analysis. It's designed to cost process and ideation reviews. Basically, it means you keep your configuration, you don't modify it, but you're just trying to make it cheaper with the same configuration. Okay? A third example, maybe a bit obvious, is all the technological development you make before you start building. So in the underground research laboratory, in the ERL, we have really turned this facility from a lab where we were studying science, geomechanics, geophysics, to something where we make technological development. So lately, we've been studying real type of junction, gallery junction, gallery intermediate level cells junctions, X and T junctions. The idea is to understand better the geomechanics of these singular points in the design, be better at building this work when we will start doing the real job, and understanding the support and the forces at these special places to be able to have a good design. We have also built galleries up to 9 meters, intermediate level waste cells, high level waste cells, and monitoring equipments. We have also done this technological development in surface facilities. So here you have a picture of the funicular. We have a mock-up of our funicular that we built, real size. Not the length of the ramp, of course, but the size of the funicular. So we could make full-scale tests of the funicular, especially braking, emergency braking. We also have developed robots for the emplacement and the retrieval of high-level waste and intermediate-level waste, and monitoring tools. All this in surface facilities. The fourth one, and it's a very global one, is the waste reception schedule. In fact, there is a lot of money to win if you manage to organize properly the transport, the interim storage, and the disposal, this global system. For transport, you can win by soundly managing your cask fleet, your operations, and the way you maintain your expedition facilities. For interim storage, you can design the future capacities. You can make the design of your facility, especially for high-level waste, because they have to manage the heat exchange, and also the date when you will dismantle these facilities. And for disposal, it is very important to design a gradual building program, to have the right design hypothesis, because some of your work will have to last 100 years, and others only maybe 20 or 30 years. Okay, so you can play then with the margin, and also you can spread the fluxes, and you have to avoid all the peaks in the operation that are mainly very costly. So here you have the example of the gradual construction of CGO. We start with this one in 2040. We developed that until 2080. We start building the high-level waste disposal facility in 2080, and that is at the end of it. So the waste reception schedule really is the source of the gradual construction, the phasing of the underground route, of the underground work, excuse me. So it will imply successive decision and authorization to modify eventually the facility. So we do the same at surface. We built the surface in several parts linked with the development of the underground facility. And this is the last slide. We have a very specific regulatory framework for CGO, and it is represented on the slide. So let's imagine we have our license decree for construction. Then we will start building. Then we do the inactive test. We have the commissioning by the safety authority. Then we have the active test. And then we start disposal operations. This 15 to 25-year period is what we call the industrial pilot phase. It is specific because we have at the end of it, just before the end of it, a law that will tell us whether we should continue with the disposal operations or if we may stop, and if France decide of another way, of another management way for its high-level waste. And we have taken advantage of this regulatory framework because we think that this 15 to 25 years of feedback of operations is a major tool for optimization, because we will reintroduce all the teachings of this 15 to 25 years into the design, and we'll use it for the extension of the facility, change our design hypothesis. They are very robust now, and all our geomechanicians think that they are too robust, that they are too much margins, so we can reduce the margins. So we'll do that. We can change the design concept, especially for the high-level waste, and we can also eventually modify the conduct of construction work and operation. So it's a very important optimization for us. So my last word would be that I have focused on previous optimization pathway, but of course it's a continuous process. So we'll continue to do it even during the instruction of our license application. And all the teams and all the organization at Andra is now focused to introduce this permanent optimization into the design. So I thank you very much for your attention.
Very nice to be here, and we also had the meeting, IGD-TP executive group meeting yesterday and today, and talked a lot about the whole future and also obviously the optimization. So now I would like to bring some examples of optimization in Positivas program. So I would say that optimization has had a vital role in the whole program from the beginning until today and also in the future. So we even have had a phase called optimization in our program. It was not really planned, so we had the site selection, construction, preparing for operation, and then operation. But between the construction and the preparing for operation, we put an extra phase called optimization. So that really has had a big role, and there was a lot of cases where we did specific optimization. So we will have 3 presentations from Posiva during this symposium. So I will have the overall look, and then there will be 2 more specific presentations. Even though in our case optimization has been, the driver has been costs, it has been then done on the basis of scientific and technical aspects. So everything together, and also not to mention that of course safety has been the decisive factor in all the optimization cases. So it has had an impact on the design of the geological facility and also other facilities. We have done optimization with our machinery and also the disposal processes and solutions for the engineered barrier systems. Once we have gained more knowledge on the whole disposal system, the processes, the specific solutions, we have gained knowledge and understanding on the processes, what happens, what is the evolution of the site, and so on. We have been able to take a look back on some of our requirements or even some solutions. So we have been able to loosen some of the requirements based on the better understanding of the processes and the whole system. As mentioned, there will be continuation in the optimization. So once we start the operations, hopefully quite soon, we will still continue optimization. We will want to have suppliers, more suppliers, or keep the ones that are there or have new ones. So we might need optimization of the solutions. We might need or be able to do optimization of the requirements in the future, and also bring maybe new materials as well. Already in the site selection phase, as in the French program, also in the Finnish program, optimization played a role. So we had 2 final candidates, Olkiluoto and Loviisa, and they were both suitable for hosting a final disposal facility, and both communities were accepting and actually willing to have the final disposal facility. So we could have other factors also in our considerations, which one would be the most optimal, since both are safe and suitable. So we did look at the existing infrastructure. There was more infrastructure available already in Olkiluoto, and then most of the spent fuel is in the interim storage of Olkiluoto, since from the beginning of the other operator, that is Posiva's owner, they sent their spent fuel back where it was bought from. So most of the spent fuel is in Olkiluoto. So the minimal transportation and also the more existing infrastructure. So optimization of both of these facts. Then going to the design of the underground research facility Onkalo. As Onkalo is part of the geological disposal facility, it itself is an optimal solution. So we already have the entrance to the deep geological repository. We are at the site. We have been investigating the site with the underground research facility. So we have been able to really perform site confirmation studies, very detailed ones. We have been able to develop the rock construction methods to suit just to the rock type of Olkiluoto rock, and how to build the rock and the underground facility, final disposal facility, in appropriate way to be a nuclear facility. So we need to do grouting, but we do only minimal amount of grouting, for example, so that we avoid too much water leakage in the tunnels. So that's one example. Also the excavation damage zone that has been optimized to our Olkiluoto rock type. So we have been developing that already during the construction of Onkalo, the underground research facility. And obviously time and money have been saved while doing the Onkalo, the research facility at the site of the final disposal facility. When we were doing the final design of the deep geological facility, we were considering, we had already been constructing the Onkalo, the tunnels of the Onkalo. We had been considering what is the backfilling of each type of the tunnels. So we had decided that the deposition tunnels where the spent fuel will be disposed of will be backfilled with clay, with bentonite, and then the central tunnels, which are larger, they will be backfilled with a mixture of clay and crust rock. So even though the central tunnels are more expensive to construct, they are cheaper to backfill. So we considered that, do we want to have more central tunnels or deposition tunnels, and which is the optimal way of having, what is the optimal way of costs per having one canister disposed of, an optimal amount of tunnels, central tunnels and deposition tunnels. So we also considered then naturally that what is the minimum distance of each canister, so how much rock in between we need to have so that the canisters won't hit each other. So that all was considered, and we found the optimal solution so that we increased the distance between the deposition tunnels, and then also then decreased the distance between the deposition holes. So as a conclusion, there was more of the central tunnels to be excavated and also backfilled naturally, but then the amount of canisters per deposition tunnel was increased, and then the amount of the costs per each canister to be disposed of was decreased. So this was thermal optimization, cost optimization, and also the rock property optimization at the same time. Some other examples, optimization of disposal speed and timing of the whole disposal operation time. So in our final disposal program, we have spent fuel from Olkiluoto 1 and 2 reactors, Loviisa 1 and 2 reactors, and then Olkiluoto 3 reactor, which is designed to operate for 60 years. So counting the cooling time of the spent fuel with the operation time, we count 40 years of cooling time for the spent fuel, we get 100 years of operation time. So we were counting that what is the optimal speed per canisters per year. So we came to the conclusion of about 40 canisters, 35 maybe, and then 1 tunnel per year would be the optimal speed. So there is no need for us to rush more. So even though we could do 100 canisters per year, there's no need for this. So we need to wait for the freshest spent fuel to cool down while we are doing with the older ones. And this comes to the timing that we will start naturally with the oldest fuel, and then take the Olkiluoto 1 and 2 unit spent fuel first, the oldest part of that. Then in between we will have the Loviisa spent fuel, then come back to the fresher Olkiluoto 1 and 2, and then the last Olkiluoto 3 spent fuel. So this is the timing of each reactor spent fuel disposal. Also, the operations during the disposal, we will have construction of some of the tunnels, and then do the disposal, so that we will leave in between at least 2 tunnels. So there will be in shifting turns for the operations of construction and disposal. So we will not be constructing beside the tunnel that already has canisters. So that has all been designed in an optimal way during the operations. Then further on to the processes, the operation processes. To start with the encapsulation plant, that is designed to be in one row, one line only. So there is a rail in the encapsulation plant. No. How did I do here? Here is the encapsulation plant, and the spent fuel is going on one rail, and then the canister on another rail. So we here see the canister rail, and it is only one canister at a time. So this whole process and the whole encapsulation plant has been designed to only have one canister at a time, and that is okay, suitable, optimal for our speed of the less than 40 canisters per year. The spent fuel transportation, mainly from Olkiluoto, I already mentioned, so most of the spent fuel is quite close to us, only a couple of kilometers in between the final disposal facility and the interim storage for the spent fuel, so that is quite optimal. And then comes the Loviisa spent fuel, and we still have time to consider that, but we can consider 3 different options. So we have still left it open if it's a sea transport, maybe loaning from SKP the ship, or then rail or road transportation. So that is left open yet, but we have been looking at all of those possibilities. Then the buffer production and backfill material production, I will not go into that since we will have another presentation on those topics. Canister production. We have been optimizing or looking at other alternative solutions for producing, for example, the copper cell to the canister. So now we have one solution how to manufacture it, but at the same time that we are starting with 1 or 2 solutions, we are looking at the third solution, what is the most optimal way. And there are several factors that we are considering. Naturally, costs, of course. Copper is expensive, and the manufacturing of copper is also expensive, but then also that we want to have more suppliers, as many as possible, so that we are not relying on 1 or 2 suppliers only. So we want to have flexibility and secure of the supplies in the future. So we also look at other alternatives and try to find the most optimal canister manufacturing route for our purposes. Then construction of deposition tunnels. As mentioned, the grouting, for example, has been applied for our purposes, do the minimal, but also have the minimal interference in the hydrogeological conditions of Olkiluoto site, since we have several layers of water, different kinds of water in several depths of the rock. Boring of deposition holes also has been studied. We had a prototype machine for the boring machine, and then it was later on developed further on to really do all the requirements that are quite strict for a deposition hole, but to be able also to move in the deposition tunnels. There is not too much extra space as we see here. No. Here is the prototype machine, so it's sitting like a globe in the tunnel, and then the whole chain of operations. We rehearsed the chain of operations in a full-scale in-situ system test in Onkalo, and then we will go to the, in a way, cold commissioning. So also rehearse every operation before we start the operation. So that is already part of the commissioning of the final disposal facility. So by the end of next year, we hope to reach the maturity to start the trial run of final disposal. So that is also one means of optimization, rehearsing the whole organization is rehearsing the operations. We are looking at the instructions. Are they all clear enough, and can we really do everything as it is planned? I already mentioned the canister manufacturing method, and then also could mention that we have been considering from the beginning until now, what is the principle of the facilities? For each facility, do we want our own facility that we build and operate by ourselves, or can we find an existing facility? If it's a laboratory, if it's a production facility, whatever facility, so we do optimization that our own facility or existing facility. And in many cases, we have been able to use and apply existing facilities. And I think that has been more flexible, that has been more cost-effective to find facilities that are there and they know their business. So we don't need to be experts in every field of the disposal that is related to disposal. Yeah, so I think that was my second last slide. So my main messages would be that although optimization is driven by costs, it is based on scientific and technical aspects and technical basis, and safety requirements are always fulfilled. We must make sure that. So I would say allow the challenging of your solutions and be open to new ideas. So don't say and in the beginning, no, we have tried this already. Some of actually the optimization cases that we took on board in 2018 were abundant ones. So there was new solutions that made it possible, or new data that we actually did not have once they were abandoned. So we didn't reinvent the wheel. And the amount of conservatism can be reduced when understanding of processes in final disposal increases. So not all the requirements that we set now are there when we stop the operations, obviously. So there will be challenging of requirements. There will be new information on the processes, or actual operating processes, but then also the evolution and what is learned from the safety case. So there must be space for challenging and changes for the requirements and many other things. And I would say also that optimization goes mainly in hand with sustainability. What is cost-effective probably is also sustainable.
Good afternoon, everyone. Here's the problem. And yes, the presentation was made together with my boss, Ewald Verhoef. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here today, but I'll give the presentation instead. So a little bit background first. What is the nuclear field in the Netherlands? We have one operating power plant, one power plant which is closed, 2 research reactors, one uranium enrichment plant, and then of course Kovra, Radioactive Waste Management Organization, locating next to Borssele power plant. And then there are two new builds announced, Pallas Research Reactor and Shine Isotope Production Facility is under development. Both of those are estimated to be operational around 2025. At the moment, we have 110 cubic meters high-level waste, 12,000 low and intermediate level waste, and 23,000 cubic meters norm waste. And a little bit about geography of the Netherlands. So we have 17.5 million people on around 41,000 square kilometer area. The diagonal of the Netherlands is about 300 kilometers. And about the half of the land area is below sea level or just a little bit above sea level. We have very small volume of waste and high groundwater table, high population density, and quite little space. So that's our situation. So if we go for national disposal facility, there will be no surface disposal, only deep geological disposal, and that is for all waste, both high level and low level and norm waste. And COVRA is the waste management organization taking care of the disposal. It was established 1982. We have 40th anniversary this year. We moved to New Dorp 92. We are presently state-owned and 70 people working at COVRA. Our annual turnover varies yearly, but it's somewhere between 25 and 30 million euros. And COVRA has one task. It's care for Dutch radioactive waste, take care of the storage, above ground storage, and also plan the disposal of the radioactive waste. And as most of the countries, we follow polluter pays principle. So all the waste producers contribute to the funding. It is paid by the cubic meters of the waste. And the estimation is that 2130 there should be 2 billion euros for disposal. And there is no retrospective adjustment of the fees paid. COVRA takes over full title. When the waste is on our location, then we own the waste. And what are the main policies affecting our disposal plans? So all waste is managed and owned by COVRA. All waste is gathered on one industrial site, collected together. Storage time is foreseen to be 100 years, more or less. And year 2130, the decision will be made how to dispose of that waste. As early as 1984, government already set the policy about first follow the international research in the field, and then also seek out the possibility to go for shared disposal facility or internationally established disposal facility, if that actually happens. And in the latest national research program, there was a new additional policy, which is a flexibilization of the timetable. It doesn't mean we will postpone it even further. On the contrary, we can bring it closer if there is a suitable shared solution possibility available. So it gives us some flexibility with the timetable. We don't need to wait as long as originally decided if there is solution for the disposal. And presently, how is the waste management organized? Everything is stored at the COVRA's location, New Dorp. As you can see from the layout, there are still plenty of empty spaces in case some new builds which have been under discussion lately appear, like SMRs, new nuclear power plants, or extension of lifetime of the present power plants. So there is a space available, and also the buildings are modular, so they can be extended if needed. So the orange building is our high-level storage building, and the gray extension is the newly built extension part of, because more space was needed for high-level waste storage. On national disposal, we study two host rock possibilities, either in host rock, either in salt host rock or boom clay. And the research on national options have been, well, I can't say ongoing, but there has been research on national options since 1972. And the research started with rock salt, or finding out that rock salt is suitable option for geological disposal. Then continued 80s, 85, mid-80s, with more rock salt, host rock studies, and 95, also polyindurated clays came into picture. Then there was quite a long gap before OPERA research program. And there in OPERA, there was national level safety case produced for polyindurated clays. And also quite a lot of international collaboration work was included in that program. However, it was 2021, 2020, when our new long-term research program really included all this international collaboration work in the research for disposal options. And the plan is to continue this research program at least 30 years, and every 5 years reiterate what are their main drivers for the research. At the moment, the driving forces are, in general, strengthen the confidence on safety case with research on salt and clay disposal facility concepts, producing safety cases for them, assess the disposability of all the different waste forms we have, and plan the waste packaging for them suitable for disposal. And then when we have better knowledge about the concept of disposal facility or design, then it's easier to update the cost estimate and guarantee the funding for disposal in general. So, logic of a dual track policy. Dual track means that we do research both for national disposal facility and for shared solutions. So, of course, the advantages are that there will be lower cost when there's the economy of scale. You put together a lot of small inventories, and then it is much more cost efficient to build disposal facility. There will be more choices for possible suitable locations. We can pool technical capacity, personnel, and facilities used or needed for disposal. And there's possibility for diversification of disposal per waste type. So we don't need to put all the waste in the deep geological repository as we would have to do in the Netherlands. Less optimal things are longer transfer distances. National legislation and definition might be different, and all countries have different timetables, and there will be several locations where the waste have to be delivered to the disposal facility. COVRA's international collaboration, we participate a lot of different platforms, projects, but the main work field, especially for me lately, has been ERDO, Association for Multinational Radioactive Waste Solutions. There will be poster tomorrow about that if you're interested to learn about more. But there are several small inventory countries working together, starting the work from pre-disposal projects and then trying to find out suitable solution for shared repository for everyone. So that's my final slide. Netherlands has followed this dual track since 1984, and that means that both waste management organization and the policymaker both have to put some effort on both of these national and shared fields. The second track doesn't really cost that much extra, but it does provide a potential long-term reward. Because we have such a long time scales for the above surface storage, we have tried to make it more safe by having central storage. We have made it flexible for policy changes, having plenty of space available and having modular storage facilities which can be extended. Because of the long duration, we need to be on somewhat self-sufficient. So some treatment technologies has to be at our own hands. And that is why, for example, we are studying thermal treatment facilities to have that at Covra. And then knowledge building and transfer. So continuous research is really important on disposal, as everything in our field. The previous research programs, which were not planned to be anything but fixed term, showed that when you have long gaps in research, it's really hard to pick up and start again. And yeah, collaboration towards shared repository start pre-disposal. We have done that in Erdo, having joint projects in deep borehole disposal and characterization of legacy waste, which actually has a poster here today. And that is a good way to learn, to work with each other and start a path towards a shared repository.